what's up everyone? Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids. Thank you as always for checking out our videos. Today we're going to be looking at large knives, and for the sake of this series and this video, a large knife is a knife that is probably 7.5 up to about 8.5 inches long. Now I realize even saying that some people are going to be like, oh, that's not big, I have way bigger knives that I EDC, or that's huge, that should be extra large. This is, just an opinion thing on what the different sizes are. For me, I consider these large knives. As I was kind of looking through the different knives we'll be talking about in the Everyday Carry series. A couple thoughts on large knives, why they might be good, and maybe some of the challenges. So let's talk about challenges first. One thing to be aware of is just the size and weight constraint, as Nut and Fancy would put it. So the bigger the knife is, it's just going to be, clunkier in your pocket, take up more room, as opposed to, having a little knife where you can put, some chapstick and maybe a wallet in a pocket. If you have a larger knife, sometimes you don't have any room left in that pocket to put other things. Then you got the weight issue. Some people want to be super lightweight and sleek, so if you have a large knife, in general, they're going to be heavier. If they're made of a very lightweight material, or they're ceramic or something like that, then maybe it's not as much an issue. But in general, that size and weight constraint can be an issue. Another thing to think about is just the legal ramifications. Usually there are kind of activation methods as far as deployment, so like a switchblade, an automatic, things like that. Are both sides sharpened? Is one side sharpened, the other side sharpened? The regulation starts to kick in around all different things, but in general, when you're dealing with a larger knife with a longer blade, there's usually where you got more regulations starting to kick in. So you just need to be aware of what your laws are in your area or where you're traveling to make sure that you don't have a knife that's considered too big or not legal within that area. Now on the positive side of things, one of the pluses of larger knives is that they usually offer you the ability to be used harder and more aggressively without having as much a chance that they're going to break. Now again, that's not true across the board, but in general, a larger knife is going to be able to take some harder use than maybe a little small pocket knife. Secondly is that you have multi-uses when it comes to a larger knife. You can use it just as an EDC knife for everyday carry tasks. You can use it out in the woods more easily than you can like a little dinky knife. You can also use it for self-defense purposes if you needed to do so. I'm contrasting a lot of these knives with, like, in my mind, a Boker Nano, which is a nice knife, but it's very small, and so I'm not going to do a whole lot other than some basic EDC tasks with that knife. Another plus of larger knives is because you have a longer blade. If you want to have a mix of a serrated and a plain edge blade, it's easier to do that on a larger knife just because the blade is longer. The last thing I'll tell you is that because a large knife has a larger blade, that you can do different tasks than you could with a smaller knife, particularly some long slicing. So if you have a tiny little blade and you have to slice, that's it. But if you have a long blade, you can really get a nice, you can draw the knife across whatever material you're trying to slice, and that'll do it more effectively. So there's some quick thoughts on why you might want to consider a larger blade versus a smaller blade. Let's take a look at the knives. First up, we're going to talk about kind of a classic looking knife. This is the OpenL, OPI-NEL, and this is the number 8. They have lots of different knives in lots of different sizes. This one you can see has a darker handle. This is actually an anniversary edition. My brother, who actually lives overseas, got this for me and sent it to me as a gift a handful of years ago. Very simple knife, but one of the things he said to me when he got it was a lot of people carry these knives just as their everyday carry pocket knife, fold it up, throw it in your pocket, and he said just like tons of people in France are carrying these around just as a general use utility knife that's very it's just very usable. It does have a full flat grind. It has a little nail nick there to deploy the blade, and it's got this unique locking mechanism basically around the neck of the knife. Once you open it up, you're just going to twist this little piece of metal to the side, and it's going to lock in. Now, obviously, you're not going to be doing any batoning or something like that with this, but it's a cool little classic looking knife. Very comfortable in hand, very smooth handle. The other thing about this is that very easy to sharpen, and as much as I don't like to use those pull through sharpeners, you can use it with this, especially if you do it gently, and you can really get a razor's edge. This thing the edge is a little bit beat up, but it's still quite sharp right now. Let me give you some of the specs here. Your end-to-end length is about 7 3/4 inches. Your blade length is 3.5 inches. They do note on the website that it is carbon steel. It says our carbon steel is extremely hard, but it can corrode easily, so wipe it off and grease the blade or oil the blade after use. Most of the OpenL knives you're going to see are a lighter colored handle, and that's generally going to be beechwood from France. And the other thing is they mentioned their safety ring, which is how you basically lock the blade out. It's called the Viro block, and it has, as they note, 2 sections, one fixed and one sliding. Now, I personally think these are handsome blades, especially if you're into bushcrafting, you know, and you've got something that's got wood handles that you really like as far as your primary knife when you're out in the woods, but you want a small folding knife or something like that. I think these are I think they're beautiful knives, and they kind of fit that feel or that look as far as bushcrafters go. OpenL also has a variety of other tools. They've got some folding saws and some other things, so you can check out their website. OPINEL is OpenL. So check these out, OpenL knives. Next up, we've got the Kershaw Cryo 2, and this is number 1556BW over on the Kershaw website. As you can see, it kind of has a stone wash, black wash finish on the knife. Really cool knife. This is a collaboration between Rick Hinderer and Kershaw. So if you like Hinderer knives, except they're just way too expensive for you because they're quite expensive, and you want that same style, then this could be a good option to actually check this knife out. Now, this knife does come in a variety of different setups. You can get it with a black handle, with a satin blade. You can get it with this black wash. You can get it with a Tonto point. So a bunch of different options out there. Certainly search around if you want to check out this knife. One of the first things I'll tell you about this knife is that it's fun to open. It just, that flipper, you hit it and it opens up just super smooth. It's fun to use. I do also like the jimping on this. I feel like it's what I would call appropriate. So it's not super aggressive. It's rounded, and yet each divot is big enough that I feel like I have really good control on this knife. You do have a lanyard hole at the end. You do have a pocket clip that can be reversed. It's going to be tip-up carry either right or left-hand side. And it is also a frame lock. So just a heads up, some people like frame locks, some people don't like them at all. But that's the methodology as far as the locking up of the knife. Your overall length is 7.8 inches. That's a 4.4 inch handle and a 3.4 inch blade. Your weight is going to be 5.5 ounces. I will mention that while the flipper is easy and fun to use, it does have dual thumb studs. I just find it a bit harder to deploy the knife with the thumb studs. So the flipper is definitely my choice when it comes to the options of how I'm going to actually deploy this blade. I do think this is a good looking blade. I do like Hinderer designs. They're just in general out of most people's price range. Is very expensive. It is 8CR13 MOV steel, so it's not a super high expensive, high costing steel, but it is going to function well. You're going to be able to sharpen it pretty quickly. It shouldn't be a major problem there. And if you have this all stone wash finish, I think that's nice. It's also, this is going to wear nicely. You're not going to have like, major stains on your handle and even on your blade, just because by the nature of how it's all black wash, as they call it, as opposed to stone wash. But since it's all this similar coloration, I think it's going to hold up nicely. Next up, we're going to talk about Spyderco knives. We're going to focus on two different knives in particular. We have the Spyderco Tenacious here, and we also have the Spyderco Paramilitary. Now, the Tenacious is basically a step up from the Persistence, and the next step beyond this would be the Resilience. They're all going to be probably in the $30 to $40, $45 range. You can get the Tenacious in all black. You can get it with serration, like a full serrations on the blade. You can get it with the plain edge here. Full flat grind. The steel, it does say on the blade 8CR13 MOV. This is a great Spyderco knife if you want to get into trying out Spyderco and their style of blade and find out what you think of it, but you don't want to dump all the money into basically buying a Paramilitary or a Manix or something like that. This has been a great EDC knife for me. I have a buddy who's EDC'd this for years. Not this particular one, but his, and he has just really liked it a lot. And he worked in landscaping, so he was always cutting bags and cutting things, and this thing really held up quite nicely for him. For the Tenacious, you're talking about 7 7/8 of an inch from end to end, and a blade length of 3 3/8 inches. Again, your blade steel 8CR13 MOV, and your weight is 4 ounces. Your handle material is G10, and on this handle, I would say it's again, for me, just right when it comes to how aggressive it is. I EDC the Benchmade Triage quite a bit, and that's definitely more aggressive than this. This is just right, I think, for an everyday carry knife. You can see where my hand falls with this knife. I mean, this thing, it does everything right in my mind. You do have options for your pocket clip on all four sides, so tip up, tip down, and left and right side carry. It is a liner lock. It is easy to open up. Nice. Overall, just a light knife. Doesn't feel like I'm carrying around some big, hefty thing. Fun to deploy this knife. Now, if you like this knife, but you're saying, hey, I want to invest in something a little bit more expensive, you might want to check out the Spyderco Paramilitary. This is really a classic in everyday carry knives, especially in that kind of larger category. About a year and a half ago, Blade HQ ran an everyday carry knife challenge, and basically just had kind of playoffs to see what people's favorite everyday carry knife was. And if I remember correctly, it was the Benchmade Griptilian against the Paramilitary 2 in the finals, and the Paramilitary 2 won. Now this is S30V steel, which is a high-end steel, full flat grind, nice tip on this. You can pierce. Just a very solid lockup system. This is not a liner lock. This is what they call a compression lock on the back. I always thought this knife was going to be really big when I first tested it out, but it's super comfortable in hand. I mean, I think the Tenacious is comfortable, but this is probably up there as far as one of the most comfortable folding knives that I've ever used. There are lots of different options. Some of the most popular are all black handle with the satin finish. There's all black handle with the black finish. There's the digital green camo with black or satin finish. There's also brown handles. And because this knife is so popular, there's been a lot of other options put out there. I've seen them with blue handles. I actually saw a purple handled one not too long ago. So a lot of different options when it comes to the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, because again, people just love this knife. If you want to check out, I'll put a link down below to the late Boy Scout. He had a review of this knife, and he used it, I mean, really aggressively. He was out doing, if I remember, some batoning and things like that with it in the woods. Certainly not built for that, but it shows you how well this knife is made. You can carry it both sides, tip up, tip down, right hand, left hand, and yeah, I mean, if you want to invest, say you're out there and you're like, I'm going to spend $100 to $150 in a lifelong investment for an everyday carry knife, you can't go wrong with the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Just a lot of people who love it, and a lot of good reasons why they do actually love it. The deployment on this knife, very easy, very smooth. I will tell you that if you get this knife, you're probably going to have to get used to the way it locks and unlocks, because, you know, like when I deploy it, I'll start to go like this with my thumb and be like, okay, let me just press the liner lock or press the frame lock. I'm looking for it, forgetting that it's actually on the back. You see here when I press the compression lock, right now the blade doesn't fall down, but when it was brand new, this thing would swing down. So just be careful that your thumb, your hand, no fingers are in the way when you're closing up this knife. All right, so as I'm making this video, I feel like as I'm talking about the knives, I'm like, that's a handsome blade, that's a handsome blade. This one, I guess it's handsome. I just think it's a cool blade. This is the CRKT Fossil. This is the smaller version. It's 7.69 inches from end to end. There's also a large version, which is 8.88 inches from end to end. There's a little close-up for you. Let me get that in the camera. There you go. You can also get this with the VEF serrations. This is obviously the plain edge. And then you can also get it in the larger version, the smaller version, and then also with a black blade or this satin finish, as you can see it. This is a cool knife. This is a Flavio Coma design flipper, very smooth with the IKBS system, comfortable in hand. It's funny because there's not a ton of jimping. There's a little bit here on the top and then some toward the back here. And this jimping on the top, it's weird because it feels aggressive, but it's so small it doesn't really dig up your hand that much. This is just a flipper with the IKBS system, so there's no thumb studs, nothing else. But as you can see, even though I've EDC'd this and I've gotten some grit and grime in it from time to time, it does lock up really nicely. Just like a cool blade. The VEF serrations, some people like serrations, some people don't. The VEF serrations do cut in a pretty impressive way. I'll tell you that. So if you want something a little bit heftier, a little bigger, then maybe you want to get the larger version of this. I like this kind of, I don't want to say it's inlay, it's kind of an outlay, if you will. It does, the word fossil just fits for this knife. It's got kind of an old school look. It's got some hammered metal on it. The pocket clip is very good. I like the way this pocket clip sits. I'm going to close up the blade and show you up close, so you can see just a tiny bit of that knife handle is going to be exposed when you're actually using the knife. No other options for where you actually set up, so it's going to be tip up and right hand carry for the Fossil. Let me give you some of the specs here on the Fossil. So overall length 7.69 inches, your close length 4.31, and your weight is 4.1 ounces. Your blade 3.4 inches. Your material for the blade is 8CR13 MOV. It does have a satin finish on this one, obviously. Hollow grind, drop point, plain edge, and the handle material is 2CR13 stainless with a G10 overlay. It is a frame lock, as I mentioned earlier. So I would call this organic. It's a very organic looking blade. Very kind of earthy overall feel. And I like this one a lot. I'll show in another video. We'll show you the No Time Off from CRKT, same designer, Flavio Coma, and that's a cool blade as well. He just does stuff that's kind of out of the box. This one has this one has the nice long blade there for those slicing cuts, and despite the fact that there's a lot of texture on the handle, I do find it pretty comfortable to hold on to. It's also, so you've got the jimping here to put your thumb. You can put your thumb further out, and then you can also hold it like this quite easily if you want to do some sort of precision cutting with this knife. This one is budget friendly. It's probably going to run you in around the $50 range, and then if you get the larger one, it's going to run you a little bit more. Some people are probably going to have a beef with the ACR13 MOV steel, but that's where they're going to save you some money just by not putting a ton of cash into the steel that they're using. Still a good steel. It's not an amazing steel. It's not going to be as good as, in my opinion, like an AUS 8, or obviously if you get up to 154 and things like that. But it's a good steel for a very reasonable price point. Cool looking blade. I wonder if they would consider making it even smaller, like a small version. This is considered the small, but a real small version of this knife. I would definitely consider carrying that as like a gentleman's folder. All right, so that's the CRKT Fossil. For our next knife, we have the SOG Trident, and this is kind of a classic as far as SOG's knives. This one was extremely popular when it first came out. This is a cool knife. It's a little different style than what I usually carry. It's definitely a bit more aggressive. It's got that clip point on it, some nice jimping on the top, on the spine of the blade, on the handle, and down toward the end of the handle and on the underside as well. I'm usually a guy who just prefers a plain edge blade, but this one does have serrations. Let me show you that right there. So there's your serrations. But I have found them actually useful. I don't find them to be, you know, a major hassle, or I don't find them getting in the way. Does have probably the deepest pocket clip of any of the knives that we've talked about so far. I mean, the pocket clip actually sticks out further than the base of the handle. There is a hole there for a lanyard. Some of the features on this one, so it does have a locking mechanism. When it's down like this, then you can't release the blade. Press it up. You can see a tiny bit of red in there. Red is dead, and therefore you can release the blade. This thing pops out, so just be aware. It's an assisted opening. Once you get it going, it's definitely gonna fly open. The other thing about these, the Trident, is that it has this little cutout you can see right there in the handle, and the blade sticks through there. So the idea is that this is a strap cutter. I've tried it on paracord and some other things. It works okay. It's definitely not as good as like something that has a dedicated strap cutter, your Benchmade triage, things like that. But it will work, especially if you have to cut paracord and for some reason you can't deploy your knife or open your knife. You could certainly use that. I also want to show you this one, which is the SOG Trident Elite. This is a newer version. I'll just do this two side by side so you can see what they actually look like. So there's your Trident, and on the bottom is the Trident Elite. Has some different inlays, different style on the blade. Very similar in size though. This one is, you know, they got no serrations on it. The jimping goes quite far up on the spine of the blade. You can also see when we close this up, similar locking mechanism, but there's also a glass punch there on the end. Yeah, you can see it now with my thumb there. So there's a glass punch there. I do find that when this sits in my pocket, it's nice because it also runs nice and deep, and the glass punch, sometimes people put the glass punch on the end where it's going to be scratching your hand when you reach in to grab the knife. Not so with this knife. So this one pops open quite nicely as well. Cool looking knife. I just like these two knives. Again, the Trident I find to look quite aggressive. You know, definitely has like if you were looking for something that looks kind of like a tactical folder, this could be a good one for you. The Trident Elite I think does the same thing, but it's a little more subdued. So there's the Trident Elite, and there's the Trident. This one that we're looking at now is the Ontario Knife Company Rat 1. And this, in my opinion, as far as in this size, is the best budget folding knife that you can get out there. $35, comes in a lot of different options. You can get it with the black blade and the tan handle. You've got satin blade options. You actually have pink handle options, tan handle options, green. So there's just a lot of different options out there for this. This obviously is the black one with the brown handle, and it is AUS 8 steel. Ergonomics very good. I have a buddy who has He has this one with the Desert Tan, and he's really made it his utility knife. So when he's working, this is the knife that he carries. Thumb stud for deployment. Really just clicks open, very smooth opening. Pocket clip can go tip up or tip down, right or left-handed carry. You can see I've put a little lanyard on mine there. And liner lock. Yeah, just this is a cool knife for 35 bucks. I think this is, again, the best budget knife, kind of in my categories, large folder out there. Ontario makes a lot of good stuff. They're probably more well known for their fixed blades than they are for their folders. But this one has served me really well, and I actually got this as a gift from a bunch of guys from my church, and they just knew that I had my eye on it. I have the Rat 2, which is kind of the smaller version of this, and they knew I liked it, but they were like, I was like, I don't want to spend the money on the Rat one. So for my birthday, they picked this knife up for me. End to end, it's about 8.5 inches long, and you got a 3.5 inch blade, and the cutting edge goes almost all the way down, you know, right to the handle. So if you're looking for something that's budget friendly and a larger folder, this is the one I would recommend you going for, the Ontario Knife Company Rat 1. Next up, we have the Benchmade Barrage. Now, this is actually owned by a friend of mine. I have a mini Barrage, which is obviously a smaller version of this. This is 154 cm. You can get this with a black blade. You can get it with partial serrations. You can get it with a black and silver, kind of silver grayish handle as well. So a bunch of different options for this. This was a assisted opening, but you can actually remove the assist if you don't want to have it. It does have the access lock, so very secure there. And it does have dual thumb studs for deploying the blade. The mini Barrage I find to be quite comfortable, and that's also true with the Barrage. I just feel like the ergonomics of the hand, they figured out where your hand's going to rest, and it works. Some grooves there for where your fingers are going to fall. You do have a locking mechanism here on the back, so that when it's open and the locking mechanism is engaged, you can't push the access lock back. When it's closed and you have the locking mechanism gauge, you can't accidentally deploy the knife. So I don't often use the locking mechanism, but you can certainly do that if you want to. It is going to be tip up carry. There's your pocket clip, right hand or left hand if you prefer. 154 cm, same steel that they use on a bunch of other knives. My mini Barrage is actually D2 tool steel, and that was a special version that they did with only Cabela's. So Cabela's and Benchmade worked together on my mini Barrage. But I like 154 cm, nice long blade. For as big as this knife is and as it looks, I do find this quite portable. It doesn't feel like it's, you know, this huge thing sitting in your pocket. So that's the Benchmade full-size Barrage. So there you have it, large folding blades. Now these are the size of knife as far as EDC that I carry most of the time. I'll go down to different sizes depending on, you know, if I'm like in a situation where I gotta wear a suit. I don't usually have a large knife like this. I may have something smaller, my Rat 2 from Ontario Knife Company or something. But these are the size of knife that I usually carry around kind of generally every day. I just like to have that much blade with me because I'm out and about doing things, and I'm out in the woods, and then, you know, situations pop up. So I prefer to have a little bit larger blade like that. Links for all these knives are down below. So if you want to purchase them, feel free to do so using those links, and that'll help support the Everyday Tactical Vids channel. And more videos coming soon, especially in our Everyday Carry series. Thanks for checking out this video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and check us out on all our relevant social media. That is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. Take care.